Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes? Matt here from YoVideogames. I'm back again with another hands-on impression from the Summer Game Fest Playdays, and this time I'm talking about the most surprising and one of the absolute best games at the show, and that was Phantom Blade Zero. Now, this is a cool-looking hack-and-slash game that was first shown off about a year ago at a Sony State of Play, and then kind of went quiet after that. Now, it actually shows up here, and it in a playable form, and it's actually really awesome. So that was the first thing that really struck me, was like, oh my goodness, it's not only is it here and playable, but actually getting hands-on with it, it's like, oh, this actually is a lot of fun to really play. So because of the sort of quiet nature the game went through after their first reveal, a lot of people thought, okay, maybe it was like this interesting, maybe Sony game that was first announced, and it's going to take a while to come out and it'll end up like Celeblade. It's actually not like that, actually. So the reality is, this is not a Sony published game. Sony has helped with sort of getting this game going and off the ground, and with distribution and some funding, to my understanding. But it's not a Sony first party game. And that was something that the development team did want to like kind of stress, that like, hey, we're not a Sony studio. We're not owned by them. This is maybe it's going to be like a timed exclusive. I don't really know. The details of the release date haven't really been worked out, but it will be on PC, I believe, day and date with the PS5 version for sure. Now, getting all that out of the way, how does this game actually play? And that's where the fun really begins. I spent a lot of time talking to the director of this game, and let me tell you, this game is jumped way up my most wanted games list after sort of just playing it and getting the details and vibe what they're going for from the director himself. So a lot of people look at it and go, oh, it's like this kind of crazy maybe Chinese or Chinese or like sort of like a Asian Souls. Like, it's actually not that. One of the best things about the game was when I was talking to the director, he was like, yeah, I didn't want to make Souls-like combat. I wanted to make different combat. And I was like, oh, man after my own heart. So he's really inspired by Devil May Cry and Metal Gear Rising in particular, and Ninja Gaiden, a lot of that. So you're going to get a character action game, but the difference here is that it is very much like a sort of 3D Metroidvania map design. So it's not Neo, it's not level-based or mission-based where you go from A to B on a mission. It's not Elden Ring, where it's just this big giant overworld open map, you can kind of just do whatever you want whenever you want. It is a 3D interconnected maze-like map. So basically kind of like original Dark Souls or again like a 3D Metroid, where it's a bunch of different specific areas that have locked doors or one-way doors or whatever, and as you slowly make your way around the world, you unlock paths and entrances to interconnect all the different areas of the game. So that's actually pretty cool. So it's sort of in that wonderful in-between where it's not level-based, it's not super linear, it's not super open world either. So very fun to kind of learn that, but way more impressive was the combat, and that's really where it gets into why this game actually surprised me and impressed me so much. And that was the way the mechanics are built in. And this is actually, they've spent a lot of time, like almost half the development of the game has been sort of just nailing down these mechanics and making sure that the combat feels good, and it really shows. And I really, you could really feel like the attention to detail and love put here. So a big thing you can do is of course like the dodge and parry mechanic. So you can hold down the button to just block, right? And you can block basic attacks, and you'll even see the character react and animate. You probably saw that in the trailers, which is where we were kind of worried about, is this game actually real, or is it all just sort of like a really good looking cinematic trailer? So the fun thing is, say you're fighting a boss or even a mid-boss or any enemy, and you can hold down the block button, and your character will kind of dodge and block the basic attacks. When you see the enemy glimmer light blue, that means you can do a perfect parry on it and get like basically this big cinematic thing where it slows down and your character zips around to the side or behind them, and then you could just start wailing away on them. So you basically, as you'll be attacking, you might be waiting for a light blue attack to commence, so then you can perfect parry that. And one thing I would do, say if a boss was way more like attack heavy, I'd be blocking his strings, and then all of a sudden I see his light blue come up, so I let go of the block button, and then I perfectly hit the block button again, which is I think L1 on the show floor, and then basically break the stance of the boss and then go in and wail away on it and do a bunch of big damage. However, they could also do these red attacks where like they shimmer red. Those cannot be parried, those cannot be blocked, but they can be dodged. So if you do like a perfect dodge, a la Bayonetta or something like that, again, you get this sort of ghost step where he whooshes around, misses their attack, and then you get to go in and just wail away, like you punish the crap out of the boss. So I took to this game like a duck takes to water, and I had almost no problem with the combat. There's a bunch of weapons in this game though, and the demo was sort of broken up in these little piecemeal areas where there's like, okay, here's a tiny section of a map where you can fight normal enemies, and you have 2 sets of weapons there. You also have ranged weapons, and I'll get to that. And then there was an area where it's like, here's a couple enemies and a mid-boss, and then here's like a main boss in the demo. So that was kind of how the demo was structured. And one of the kind of fun things was, like, for the first part of the demo was like, okay, you walk up like a path, and you go into a camp, like a camp of bandits, and there's like 3 of them, and they'll all attack you. But on the sides of this bandit camp, up on the cliffs, are two lookouts, and they'll shoot down arrows at you. Now here's the fun thing. If you go off the beaten path a little bit before going to the bandit camp on the main road, you might find a little trail that leads upwards, and you can then sneak attack, kill one of the lookout bandits on one side of the cliff, use your bow and arrow, and kill the other bandit on the other side of the cliff, then drop down, and then you can fight the main 3 dudes around the campfire without having to deal with anyone, shooting arrows down at you. So again, there's strategy, and then there's rewards for going off the beaten path in this game. A lot of fun there. And then, yeah, like I said, there was a bow and arrow for a ranged weapon. There was also like a flamethrower like weapon. There was like a big cannon, like a really like sort of I don't know, like what you say, like one of those ancient style, big like dragon head over like a big cannon thing you could fire off. You could even charge it up. So there's different ranged and different attack weapons, and they all have different basically attack patterns and stuff. There's going to be over 30 different types of weapons, and there's going to be a bunch of different combinations you can do too. One of my favorite weapon types was on the actual main boss, and that was dual blades. And the fun thing was there was dual blades, and there was like a big old great sword, or maybe it was a naginata or something like that. And I tried using the big slow handed 2 weapon on the boss, and yeah, I kind of got worked pretty hard. And I switched to dual blades, and I was immediately able to kill the boss, no problem. So it really emphasized, going for your playstyle. My playstyle is always sort of rush down mix up. Loved it. The game totally accommodated. The director actually told me his favorite weapon in the game was the greatsword. So even though the director had a preference for a weapon that was opposite of my own, he was still making sure that my play style for fast rushdown weapons also worked. Another cool thing about the game is that there's interactivity with the environment. So for example, when you're fighting this big boss in the demo, and you're up against like a pillar or something, actually you'll see a little button prompt come up, and you can run up the pillar and launch like a sort of jumping attack off of a pillar. It's almost like this weird Power Stone manic energy to it. So that's actually really cool as well. Something you don't really get in a lot of these games anymore. The boss fought with this big giant, I don't know what else you could call it other than like a big mace yo-yo thing of death, and you find this sort of like rickety old wooden temple thing, and sometimes he'll throw like the yo-yo, like this big spinning yo-yo thing up and get stuck in the roof, and then he'll slam it down on you, and he can instant kill you in one hit. So the funny thing was going at it at a second or third time when I was fighting the boss, he threw this big thing up in the air, and then he plunked it down right on my head and and it landed squarely like a pumpkin on my head, and he just ripped it off, and I died instantly, went from full to 0 health. So yeah, you can still find bosses that'll do like, oh whoops, like it's a big telegraphed attack. So if you get hit by that's really on you. And again, killing the boss wasn't actually that hard. I again switched to dual blades, just block his normal attacks, wait for the light blue heavy attack, parry that immediately. If I see the red attack come out, dodge it, perfect dodge it at the right moment, wail on him some more. It was a ton of fun, and it was great to see like a crowd sort of build around you, if you're doing well. We were doing well at the game, and a bunch of people are saying, oh my gosh, this guy's whooping this boss's butt, and like so they all like crowd, like it's just like gave me this great arcade experience, even though we were at like this big industry private event. Yeah, the combat is just really nailing it. And the director told me, interestingly, it's not a game with launchers and aerials. Like there will be weapons where you can knock enemies up into the air, but he says this is not a game about hitting people up in the air, jumping up in the air, and then like staying in the air and doing air combos. This is not an air combo game. And a reason for that is that they've actually spent in a lot of time with a real life kung fu martial arts master who's doing all the mocap for the game and using all the mocap for the weapons. So it's actually a very grounded, I mean, it's still a sort of fantasy style game, but it's a very grounded martial arts style game, what they're going for here. So you will do cool stuff, but you're not gonna be flying through the air doing a bunch of aerial stuff. It's not Dragon Ball, okay? So there's a much more sort of like groundedness to the melee combat here. You're gonna do a lot of cool stuff. I think I even saw stuff where they were like parrying or grabbing like projectile shot at them, like arrows or whatever, in some trailers or something. But like you're gonna be doing a lot of really cool stuff in this game, but you are not gonna be zipping around, like your Goku or Superman. And that's okay, because again, they're going for a sort of like, the map design is closer to, say, to a interconnected Dark Souls, Metroid 3D, Metroid Prime style map, mixing that with Metal Gear Rising and Devil May Cry style combat, but a little more grounded version of that. So it's kind of like a little best of both worlds. And the game is very much following. It's called S-Game, I believe is the name of their company developer. It follows the same path that Liza P did, where Liza P did, the developer, they did mobile games, they did like rhythm games, for PC, and then they sort of built themselves up, and they're like, okay, we got a little bit of money and some, so got our companies in good standing, so let's make a big fancy console action game. And that's the same thing these guys did, straight out of Beijing, where they were like, hey, we had some success in mobile and we really want to make a really cool console game. And the director really felt like, I miss character action games. Why hasn't there been a new Metal Gear Rising? I asked the same question every single day of my life, and he said, fine, I'll do it myself. And he put on the Infinity Gauntlet and just said, let's get to work. So Phantom Blade Zero, not only is it real, not only does it play really well, but it's actually going to come out hopefully within a year, and you guys will all be able to see for yourselves as well that, wow, this is just a really cool take on like a mix of genres, really, and it's really bringing back that really in-depth character action style combat, Ninja Gaiden, Devil May Cry, Metal Gear Rising. It's really bringing that back. We don't get nearly enough of that. Everyone in the world is chasing after, that the tail and the shadow of Dark Souls and Elden Ring. Well, at least we have one game to look forward to where it's like, okay, I like the level design from Dark Souls, but I want Metal Gear Rising combat. And thank God for this game. It's absolutely one of my most anticipated games right now. The staff meeting them was wonderful. They couldn't be more cool, chill people. They couldn't have been, it couldn't have been any better. And I couldn't have had blew all my expectations away. I couldn't believe, what we were getting our hands on actually here with Phantom Blade Zero. So this was a wonderful title, one of the best games of the show, one of the ones you should be looking forward to. And, I cannot wait to get, more of this game whenever it does come out. So, they'll look forward to this one, guys. I don't know if there's a wish lister for it, but yeah, this is definitely one you want to look out for. If anything I've said makes you excited, go for it. Please jump in on this one. This one's real. This is a real one to get excited for. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you on the channel later, dudes.